Hey, and welcome back to another Revit video. In this video, we're looking at 5 different reasons why an element might be hidden in your view. And you're like, what do you want to do? What can we do? I don't know. It makes you want to flip the table. I know, I've been through it 100 plus times. I know what it's like to not be able to find an element, wonder where it is, and not know how to get it back. So in this video, that's what we're going to look at. But first, I will say, if you happen to learn something or just like the video or anything, please demolish that like button. It really helps me out so much. Also, consider changing the phase of that subscribe button to existing. That also helps me out so much as well. So jumping right into it now, I've got just a basic, really basic floor plan with walls, a window, and a door. And we've got 5 different settings here that we're going to start to look at and affect these different elements to get them to hide and come back, and what we have to do in order for all of that to happen so we don't end up losing our elements. So number 1, we've got hidden in view. This is probably the most simple. It is what it is. It's simply hidden. If you know the shortcut to hide something, then this is another example of where you can do that. You can hit the shortcut to hide this wall. You can also right click the wall, hide in view element. That's it. You could also select this element, come up to the modify tab and this light bulb and hide element that way. There's a lot of ways to hide elements. And the first thing you want to do when it comes to finding these elements is, maybe you've got these walls hidden, is simply come down here and choose the reveal hidden elements. This is the light bulb here at the bottom of the screen. Once I do that, you can see everything that's hidden will now be highlighted in the same color as the border, this kind of red magenta color. And you can see I've got these walls here that I just hid, and you can select them and there's an unhide element there. And just like before, we can actually select these, right click them, and then unhide in view, and then you can see unhide element. Perfect. And you know you're in this view if you've got this same red border with this light bulb lit up down here, and if you see reveal hidden elements. So you're simply revealing those hidden elements. That's great. So there's also a shortcut. I can simply unhide it that way, and we're back to normal. And then simply there's a shortcut for even closing or showing the reveal hidden elements. All the same, we're back to where we were. Again, that's very simple. That is step 1 of just something is hidden in the view. Now maybe it's also applied to more than just the element, because I can right click this, I can hide in view, I can hide the category. That means in fact every wall that I have in this entire view is now hidden. Now, of course, I can come back to the reveal hidden elements and I can see them all there. And I can right click this, and now maybe I want to unhide this element. Well, I can't unhide the element, and I can't unhide the element because this element, this particular wall, was hidden by category only. And you can see that there, I only have the option to unhide by category. And you can also see it here at the top. Instead of unhide element being lit up, I see unhide category, and that's just because that wall was hidden by category. Okay, that's great. Now I'm going to go into the visibility graphics, and if you have a particular element that's hidden, you're not going to be able to really determine something in the visibility graphics, at least by category. And so because we're looking at things particularly by category, I can come all the way to the bottom and see that walls, in fact, is turned off. It is hidden by category. So I can simply check that here, hit OK, and now every wall is now back in my view. I don't have any walls hidden. They're not hidden by element or by category. So be aware of that. You've got element and category that can be hidden. But if we also notice here, if I right click this and I hide in view, you can see there's also a by filter. Now that gets us into step number 2, hidden by filter. Filters are kind of I'm not going to say that they're necessarily advanced, because they are pretty simple, but it's not something you were actively probably doing if you're just getting off the boat into Revit. So hidden by filter. First, let's simply define what filters are. Filters are a way of selecting an object and then manipulating that object. You can do really any kind of overrides that you would want to do with that object. Now, typically what people would do is they'd make some colors or anything like that. Anything you would make in visibility graphics as far as colors, changing anything in here, you can do through filters. But on top of that, just like you can in visibility graphics, you can hide specific objects or categories or anything. And we're going to look at that right now. So I've got a filter made, and you can find filters if you go into view and filters. And I've got a couple here. One is called door, and this is particularly looking at doors, the category of doors, and then the specific type name of doors that's equal to 36 by 84. This is a standard Revit template. I'm not doing nothing fancy here. It's just looking at this particular door. Now, if I go into this view and I go into visibility graphics, and to apply a filter, you do come into the visibility graphics, you can see this filters tab. I don't have any filters in this view, but I can add some. I'm going to add this door. I'm going to hit OK. And now I can see that I've got my filter there. And I can hit OK here, and nothing's going to happen. Well, nothing happens there because if I go back to filters in this particular view, I can see the door category or the door filter is actually visible. I can see it. And I have not applied any sort of overrides or anything here. But something a lot of people will do is they'll make filters to hide things. So a lot of times what you'll do is you'll see that you've got a filter applied and this visibility is turned off. And so when I hit OK there, we can see that that particular door, being a different type, is actually hidden. Now I can change this particular door to that type and we can see what happens. Well, that door is now gone as well, and that's just because I changed it to that particular type, and it's being filtered out, in this case, by that filter that I made. Now that's great. Now you might see this view and realize, okay, well, I'm missing a door, and what do? Well, it could be a filter in this case. Now, when we toggle reveal hidden, this is where things get a little dicey. Now, if they were not hidden by element or by category, you're unfortunately not going to see them at all. Like they're not going to be there. And you might kind of wonder that there is actually no door modeled there, when in fact there is. And that's because it is hidden by a filter. Again, coming back into the visibility graphics, you have to then realize, okay, this filter is hiding that particular door. Now, a lot of times this filter is not going to be named doors, and it's going to be a little harder to determine what's in there. So you'll have to actually edit that filter and see what the filter is doing, what it's filtering out, or what it's hiding, or what it's doing. So this is really just something else you're going to have to check. If something is not populating through the reveal hidden elements, and you know a door is there or should be there, then you might investigate filters that way. Okay, now we've looked at filters. We've looked at just basic hidden objects hidden in the view. That's pretty simple. But now let's look at worksets. Now this is only going to apply if you're working in a work sharing model, or if you have a model that you have multiple users working in. Now I obviously do, because we can see up here at the top, I have the option of synchronizing this project. Great, that's wonderful. So maybe what we see is we've got these two doors or two walls, and they're in a different work set. So I've got work set 1, I've got the basic shared levels and grids, but I've got another work set called walls. So maybe when you arrive to the project, you see that, okay, well, there's walls missing here, and there should clearly be walls here. We need to enclose this room. Well, let's see. Let's go ahead and reveal hidden. Once again, because they were not hidden in the view or hidden by category, we can't see them. And so you're probably wondering, well, what do I do now? Well, first I'd check the filters, and then I'd probably check the work sets. So I can come over to my Collaborate tab, work sets, and I can see I've got 3 work sets. In this case, I've got work set 1, which is just the default. I've got shared levels and grids, again, another default, but then there's another one called walls. And if you notice here, all the way on the right, it is not visible in all views. That is unchecked. So that's great. I can clearly see that maybe that has something to do with it. So I can check this, and I can hit OK, and there we get our walls back. And I can inspect these walls and see, all right, what work set are they on? Well, they're on walls. And if that work set is not visible in all views, then that's a problem. Now, something else you want to check is maybe when you go into the work sets, you do see that this is visible in all views, and you should see this wall. But if we come into the visibility graphics, again, the visibility graphics are your best friend when it comes to visibility and elements being hidden or not there or something like that. We can come into work sets, and just like we have every other override here, we can override this as well. So you can see your global setting is visible, and that global setting that we saw in the Collaborate tab of the work sharing or the actual work sets is reflected exactly right here. In this case, it is visible in all views, but I can have the option of always showing that regardless of that operation being visible or not. But I could also hide this. And then again, this is just the view. And so in just this view, while still being visible in all other views, this particular work set walls it's checked here, but I've turned that off. I've hidden that particular work set in this view, meaning I can't see these walls in this view. So that is number 3, work set, something else you'll have to check when it comes to actually finding something in a view that's not simply hidden by element or category. Hidden by link. Now this one is interesting because you may not have a lot of control over your links, but you will have control over the visibility of these links in your project. So that's great. Now, what do we do here? Well, we're looking at this link, and this is actually the same model, but it's coming from a different link model. If I go to manage and manage links, I can see it right there. I've just called it Revit link, and it's loaded in. It's great. Now, something we can do is, now this could be anything. If these walls are no longer there, I could have deleted them. They could actually not be in the link, and when I load it into the project, they're not actually there. It could be that I am looking at an older model and I'm expecting these new walls to be there, but I haven't actually reloaded the model from a consultant or something like that, or I haven't actually received the new model. It could be anything like that, but a lot of these things are actually something we can find within visibility graphics as well. So if I come into visibility graphics and I decide to hide all the doors, I can see that all my doors are gone. They're now hidden. And that is regardless of it being within this project or within the link. It's hidden as well. If I come back to my project here, I can come over to Revit links. I can see my Revit link right there. That's great. But you've got display settings. And so currently this is set up by host view. And that means that every visibility graphics option or override or anything that I have set up in the host view, be it this floor plan view, this is our example, it's going to take all of that on. And in this example, I've hidden the doors, and because I've hidden the doors, the door in the link was also hidden. That's generally the way you want things to work, and that's how they work by default off the bat whenever you load in a Revit link. But when we come into by host view, we have the option of changing this. And this can start to present some confusing circumstances because you might be trying to find a particular element that's in a link and it's not there, but you have your doors turned on. So what might be the case? Well, I can come into the display settings of the Revit link in this particular view and change this to custom. And even without affecting anything here, I can come to the model categories. And again, this is by host view. And we can see that doors is already unchecked because this is by the host view. I can actually change this to custom. And this is no longer it's not going to change from this view, like the overrides that were applied to this view, but I will now have the option to edit them further. So maybe in this link, we actually want to just hide the windows. We just don't want to see that window. I can hit OK. I can hit OK again, and the window in this link only is now gone. Now I have every other window clearly there seen, but the window in that link is gone. So maybe you end up seeing, when you first see your link, you see this, the way it is now, and you're saying, okay, there's a door missing, and there's also a window missing. How do I see those or get them back? You would probably first go to Reveal Hidden. Okay, well, there's a door, and even there's a window. I can see both of them. That's great. So now I can come back to the visibility graphics, and I can check door, and I can come down here to window, and I can see, oh, well, windows is already checked. I can see all my windows. Okay, well, that's great. Now, why is this hidden? What's wrong here? Why did nothing come back? Well, it's because we applied those overrides to the Revit link itself, and now the display settings are custom. And just like before, I actually have to come back into the model here and then change this to have doors be checked on and then also windows to be checked on again before I can start to see these elements once again. Now that's kind of a mess. Now, one way to back out of all of that is you can simply change in the basics tab here, change from custom to host view. And this is basically going to say that you're going to remove all your overrides and absolutely everything that you've done to this. And maybe you want to do that. You're going to now see the host view, okay, and we'll have everything back. Now you can bring them back manually, or you can actually turn everything back to looking at this particular view when it comes to links. So that is number 4, hidden by link. Now finally, hidden by design option. Again, design options are one of those things that if you're just fresh off the boat in Revit, I wouldn't bother with. And because I wouldn't bother with it, you're probably not going to encounter this issue. Now, if you are jumping into a project that has multiple users and does have design options, this is very likely to happen. You will end up trying to find something that you can't see because it's in a design option or something like that. So if I go to the Manage tab and Design Options, I can see that I've got this option. It's called Plan Option, and I've got one option that's called Blank. I've got Altered Walls and then Boundary Walls, and it's set to Primary. And so whenever you see Primary, that means that this is what is displayed globally by default in every single view. Okay, that's great. So what we're looking at is the particular option Boundary Walls, and that is what we're seeing here. And I can't check or move or select or do anything to any element here. And you'll know that it's probably either a link or a design option if you can't select anything. And if I come down to the bottom here, I can choose Exclude Options. Now, if I uncheck this, I can now start to select elements that are in an option. And the reason I might want to do that is to find out which option these elements are in without having to go into every option and seeing if they're there and this or that. So I can just click on anything in here because I couldn't select anything before I unchecked Exclude Options. And I can come down here and I can see Design Option, Boundary Walls. Okay, that I technically knew this, but just for clarity, this object and all these objects are within the Plan Option, Boundary Walls, Design Option. Okay, great, that's good to know. Now, normally I can't select any of these. That's great, but I can't do that until I exclude options. But regardless of that, a lot of times what you'll need to do is cycle between different options. You're looking at different options in a floor plan or whatever it might be, but maybe you need to actually unhide something, or maybe something is hidden, or maybe something should be hidden in a design option. Well, that's where things come into play. I'm going to have to actually go into that design option. And down here at the bottom, as well as within the Manage tab, Design Options up here at the top, I can change my current design option from being main model to any one of these options. Now I can come into Boundary Walls, and then I'm actually within this design option, and you can see everything else that's not within that design option is grayed out. But particularly everything here is now editable. It's just like what we were selecting before, because except now I'm in the design option. Now I can hide this wall or treat this wall just like absolutely any other thing we've talked about in the past. I can hide this by filter, by a work set, or anything like that. I can just simply hide it in the view like I've done. That's great. And as soon as I leave this design option by going back to the main model, that's what I get. But it's just this view. Now, a lot of times what you'll see is maybe you'll actually, that you've got other walls going on. You've got other things going on, and you've got a separate option. So if I come back into this primary option, I can see everything here, but maybe what we're looking for is to actually see this. This is just a different design option. So you could actually be looking for this particular floor plan, and it's hidden, but in a sense it's not hidden, it's just in another design option. And you also might see this. I use this for a couple of different types of things when it comes to just modeling things normally in Revit in a way to lock them down. So maybe what I want to do is set up a blank option, and you might set this to primary if you want. So a lot of times I end up using something like this if I make almost like a project in a project. So a lot of times you have a project, and the client and contractor will want to put a mock-up together, and the mock-up in this case might be just a few different conditions that you have within the main project, within the main model, or within the building that you want to allow the contractor to physically build separately, so they can kind of go through the motions of having built that particular condition once. So that's great. And a lot of times what I want to do is actually model that in my project, not within like a separate Revit model, because I have everything that I need for that project and for that mock-up in this single project. So what I want to do is I probably would make a design option called mock-up. I would have everything within that mock-up in a design option within that option itself, but then also create a separate option that is blank. And so we could, this is a great example of that here. Maybe what I've made here is a mockup. And if we take this for example, if this is a mockup, 99% of views in my Revit project, I don't want that to be seen. So a lot of times what I would do is I would come back into the design options. I would make this blank option set be primary. And if I make that primary option, of course, I'm going to get a little error, a little warning there, but I'm going to close out and I'm going to see that there's nothing there. And that's because I specifically put nothing in that design option set. There's nothing in the design option that's showing me anything. So within that set is the blank with nothing. I've got the second option, which is just these altered walls, and then I have the boundary walls. And I can always cycle between them and see them. Okay, but if these are like different mockups, for example, I would want this to be hidden. So maybe you're actually trying to edit that mockup and we need to find it. Well, it could be as simple as changing from a blank option to an altered option, this altered option, or this boundary walls option. It could be as simple as that, and now you're working within the mockup. So that's something to be aware of as well. But just like before when we looked at work sets, I can come into my visibility graphics of this particular view, come over to design options, because again, we're looking at design options, and we can see there's my option set, plan option, and you can see automatic. Now, whenever you see automatic, just know that it is using the primary option to display. And the primary option I have set is that blank option. All right, that's great. Now, again, we can always change this to something specific, in this case, blank. And the only real reason you would do that is if you changed the primary to something else, but you always wanted this view to be blank, the blank option. Okay, but in this case, we don't. Maybe we want to change this view to another option, and maybe it's a part of our mockup specifically. So maybe our altered walls is our mockup, and this is the floor plan for the mockup. Well, this is how I would override it. I want to keep the mockup out of all other views except where I actually come into design option and show those views. And I can hit OK, and now just like, it's almost like because I've set that design option to be displayed in this view, that it is the primary design option, but only for this view. It functions the same as every other primary option would in every other view, except I've changed it to this specific option. So that is 5 separate ways that we can determine something's hidden. We don't see something, it's not right. I expect to see it, I don't see it, or I do see it and I shouldn't. Kind of things what you should do, whether it's simply hidden in the view, hidden by a filter, hidden by a work set, a link, or a design option. And that is all 5. But I do come with a bonus. It's not regarding elements within a Revit project, but it is views. And so you'll see I've got these elevation markers here, and I've actually got a sheet, and I want to take just one of them and place it on a sheet. So there it is, and I've got it on the sheet. And you can see that it's on the sheet because there's my first elevation looking at that first little room, and I can see it there in elevation. I've got this floor plan at 1/8, and then I've got this enlarged elevation at 1/4 inch. So a lot of times what you'll see is that maybe this elevation marker is hidden in the view. It could be the opposite, maybe where you get a markup and you're supposed to actually hide this in view. Now, of course, what we can do, we can always hide this. We can select this and we can hide it in view. Now, I would never do that. And why would I never do that? Because a lot of times people are going to start looking for things. And if they're looking for things and can't find things, they're going to investigate where they are. Okay, that makes sense. Now, if I decide to reveal hidden, I see this is there, okay, that's great. They'll just simply unhide it. And now maybe the real reason why you hid it was because you don't want it in the view. You want it in your project, of course, but you don't want it to be visible in that particular view. How do we get around this when it comes to callouts, elevations, or section markers? Well, this is handled very differently. And I particularly love this. So if I come over here and I can, either I select the view here, or I actually select the view on my sheet, there's an option over here in the properties, the view properties here, and it says hide at scales coarser than. So a lot of times what you'll do is you'll come into a floor plan and you'll see, oh, there should be a call out here. Oh, there should be a section marker here. Oh, there should be an elevation marker there. Why are they not there? You'll reveal hidden. They're not there. You can't see them. You'll look at filters. They're not filtered out. They're obviously not in a work set. You can't really put them in a work set. And it's not in a link. You know it's in your project. And just like, just like filter or just like work sets, you can't put them in a design option. It's a view. So what would you do then that helps you determine that, it's actually in your project. It does exist. You just can't find it. This is where we come to hide at scales coarser than. So if I hover over this, I can see that the default is 1 inch equals 400. And this is just absurd. It is the highest scale that's in Revit by default. You can always change this and add more and whatever. But this is what every view will be set at by default. Now, just to give you an idea of what we're looking at here, we basically have all the scales that we have access to within this Revit project. And they are organized from top to bottom, top being the finest detail, and then the bottom being the coarsest detail. And you can see really the same thing when it comes to this fine to coarse option, coarse to fine, however you want to look at it. But the thing to be aware of is what the scales are, and that they are ordered from fine, as in fine detail, to coarse detail. And so what is this telling us? It says hide at scales coarser than. And this is only referring to the tag or the elevation marker or section marker, whatever it is. It's only referring to that, not everything in the view. So again, maybe we want to not show this elevation marker in this view, or maybe we're looking to find it. How would we find it? Where might it be? Well, it's probably being hidden by this option here. And again, we're looking at fine to coarse detail. And so if we look at this again, it says hide at scales coarser than. So this elevation tag would be hidden at scales coarser than 1 inch equals 400 feet. Well, because of the way this is set up, there is no scale that is coarser than 1 inch equals 400 feet. And Revit specifically sets it up this way to where your elevation is set up to the coarsest scale. So it's not hidden. Obviously, if it were hidden by default, everyone would throw their hands up, flip the tables, and just leave, not use Revit. But if we want to control this elevation, how would we change it? Well, if we don't want this elevation to be seen in this floor plan, what would we have to do? Well, we've got our floor plan and it's set at 1/8 of an inch equals foot. Okay. Now, what would determine this being hidden? Well, it would be hidden at scales coarser than 1/8 an inch equals a foot. Okay, so if I put this at 1/8 of an inch, it's still there. And you can almost look at this as a greater than or equal to, because it's really just functioning as greater than or less than, not greater than or equal to, because I've set this to 1/8 of an inch and it's still there. Now, the second I move beyond 1/8 of an inch into something that's more fine, I'm going to no longer see that view. It's just going to disappear. And so I'm going to read this again with this view scale in play, and it says hide at scales coarser than 3/16 of an inch equals a foot. What is a scale in this case that is coarser than 3/16 of an inch? Well, in fact, 1/8 of an inch is. And so because it's greater than or coarser than 3/16, what I've set that particular view to be hidden at coarser than, I can't see it in this view. That's great. Now, unfortunately, when I come in here and I reveal hidden, again, it's not seen. I can't see it. I didn't hide elevations. I didn't hide that particular elevation in that view. I hid that through simply being coarser than the scale of this view. And this bonus tip has been one of the most confusing things for me, because it's one of the things where I know it's there. It's not filtered out. It's not in a work set, of course. It's not in a link or design option. None of that. Where the heck is it? If it is a call out, a section, or a elevation, this could be why. It could be that simple, that it is simply being hidden because of the coarseness or the scale of the view. And I've encountered this a lot, particularly because there's a filter that I've seen used a lot. Now I'm going to actually make this filter from scratch, I'm going to make a new filter. I'm going to call this views not on sheets. So it's going to be views, but not on sheets. And so I'm going to come down to callouts, elevations, sections. Okay. So what we want for this particular filter is, if we don't want all of these to be visible if they're not on sheets, then we need to edit this rule. So I can change this none to sheet name, or number should work just fine, but we'll use sheet number, and is equal, or is less than or equal to, and just leave this last blank. We're going to leave that blank. So what is this saying? This is now saying that every call out, elevation, or section that I have in my view that has a sheet number less than or equal to nothing, or doesn't exist, or has no sheet, then we can manipulate that however we want. So in this case, we'll probably hide it, or anything like that. But we're good here. We're done with this filter. We can hit OK. So now I want to go into this view and actually apply that filter. So I'm going to come over here and go to filter and then add, and let's go ahead and add our views not on sheets. And what we probably want to do is turn the visibility off for this. Okay. And as soon as I do that, you can see all of those elevation markers go away. And they go away because they are no longer, or not only are they no longer, they were never and are not on sheets. So they're not on sheets at all. Whereas this one is. Now, if you remember, this one was not filtered out, but we actually changed the hides in scale coarser than. So let's just bring that back all the way up to 1 to 400. We can see that that filter is actually filtering out all these different views that are not on the sheet. This is great. Now, something to be aware of, if you're doing this, you're using this filter and making this and applying this to all your templates and all that, it's great, but by default, Revit will not print any view tag or anything like that that is not on a sheet. So you don't have to worry about that. The only reason I would see that this filter is helpful is if it would just declutter all your floor plans. And that's a lot of places where I see it done. Now, if I do have this filter applied and I come up here to elevation and I want to apply an elevation, you can see I can't see the tag at all. Now, in fact, it's actually there. You just can't see it because of the filter working. And I wish the filter would work after I placed it, but that's the case. It doesn't work. Now I'm actually able to place this here, but you'll see I get a warning here that says none of the created elements are visible. Well, that's because it's filtered out, and that's just too bad. Now, if I come back and I just simply turn this toggle on the visibility, I can see that there's my elevation right there. That's great. So I'm going to undo that, and we can get back to our filter just being applied. Now, typically this is all fine. You can work this way, but it just means that you're going to have to place your elevations, whatever, in views that either don't have that filter applied, or just you have to get lucky and then find a view again. So a lot of times what I like to do is, if I see those filters being used in my project, I like to leave them as they are, except I'll make them visible, but just simply half-tone them. And this, it does serve to declutter things a bit, but I can still see that the views are there. I can still begin to place another view if I want to, and everything is still there. It's just a little less cluttered because everything that's not on a sheet is halftone. So all of that is preference. If you want to do it, if you don't, that was an entire bonus tip. We looked at this particular call out, hiding this in a scale coarser than this view. That is one definite reason why you might see some elevation sections or call out tags being just seemingly vanish from a view when they're actually there. And it could be because of that. So be sure to check that before you flip tables or set your computer on fire. Because believe me, I've gone through some tables and computers because I've not checked hide at scales coarser than. It's very important to do that. I happen to find a particular article that deals with this subject exactly. Things being hidden in the view, and where are they, and what can I do about it? It's got a list of 33 different reasons why you might have an element that you can't see in a view, or that it's hidden or something like that. So I would highly encourage you to check that out. I will leave a link to that article in the description below. So be sure to check that out. I specifically did not cover all 33. I wanted to cover something more broad, cover more general circumstances, where that article takes care of all the fine details and really specific reasons why you might have one element that you can't see in a certain situation, and all these different things you can check for. So look for that in the description below. So I hope you enjoyed this video. In this video, we looked at 5 different distinct ways that you might have some elements that are hidden in your view and you want to find them, or maybe you want to just hide them in a particular way. We also covered a bonus tip looking at tags, all the different elevation, section, and callout tags, and why they might be hidden, a special filter that goes with that as well. So if you enjoyed this video, or really if you learned something, I hope you did, please demolish that like button. It really helps me out so much. Also, consider changing the phase of that subscribe button to existing as well. That also does help me. Please leave any comments or questions you have in the comment section below. I will be sure to get to all of those, because I know this can be a confusing subject and you might have a very specific set of things that you're working with that we need to look at a bit differently. So I can handle all of those there, and I'm happy to. I hope to see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for watching.